Hi, everyone. Welcome to Inspired to One podcast. Today I'm here with Simon Curran, who is the CEO of Noxgear. Simon applied his studies of artificial intelligence and humanoid robotics at Moog, an aerospace engineering firm in Buffalo, New York. He led their R&D center and was the technical lead for the F-35 flight controls before moving back to Ohio and co-founding Noxgear in 2013. He holds a bachelor's and master's in electrical, computer, and mechanical engineering from Ohio State. Welcome to the show, Simon.
Wow, thanks, Richard. Glad to be here. You make that sound way cooler when you say it.
Well, let me tell you something. You have an impressive background, so I'm sure it's impressive on its own. But I appreciate that, and I appreciate you being here to share your amazing journey and story with our community. So, love to learn more about you, the work that you've done, you as a runner, and about your company and how you support the kind of the running and sports community. So, welcome.
Glad to be here.
Yeah. So let's kind of roll back the clock a little bit and just learn a little bit more about you in terms of how did things begin for you? Let's maybe where you started running and yeah, take us back there.
For me, running didn't start until I got into my career after grad school. I was a bodybuilder, about 50 or 60 pounds heavier. And when I got to that company, there were a lot of runners, and they told me about this race coming up called the Corporate Challenge, where thousands of people show up in downtown Buffalo and people from each company run. And the top four people from each company compete for a place in the international championship hosted around the world. So I heard about that after a few months of being there, and I was this big, bulky bodybuilder. And the guy that I had met there, his wife said, "Simon, don't even try. You're going to hurt yourself. Don't overdo it. It's a hard race. People go out really hard." And that's when I probably realized who I am as somebody who loves a challenge. And so basically, she didn't know it at the time, but she challenged me. Um, and I took that challenge, and fast forward 1 or 2 years later, and I was the first place winner of the corporate challenge, which is a 3.5 mile race in downtown Buffalo. But I was the first place male on the male team, and her husband was also on the team, and we ended up going to that was Singapore for the international championship, and that really started the runner bug for me. I mean, you know, you're going to an international championship, you sound like you're really cool and really fast. But honestly, over there, I think the history of all corporate challenges around the country, there's like 50 across there's 50 different cities, I think, that compete. And I think we were the slowest winning team maybe in history, but we were still, we still earned our spot to go to Singapore. And from there, I just looked at running as a new challenge that I'd never really exercised that part of me, and I sure did like it more than being inside of a gym. And running is we can really get into it, but there's so many advantages to running, and it's also depends on how you look at it. It's an easy thing to do. You just need a pair of sneakers.
That's for sure. And that's an incredible story. And, I love to hear kind of these origin stories about how runners got into the sport. And I love yours. And I think some of what you said around kind of being outside of the gym or being outdoors is definitely a draw for folks. And as well as it's something that's relatively easy to start with, right? To get into, it's not as expensive until you're maybe getting more to the higher level races or more kind of elite level. But yeah, I love what you said. And so tell me a little bit more about the experience in Singapore. So that's you qualified for that race, and how was that for you?
Well, I was still just kind of exiting the bodybuilder scene. So every time I ran, my RPMs were at the red line. It was much harder for my body. And people were like, "Simon, it looks like you're going to bust. Your head's all bright red." But I have a hard time not operating near that red line, and almost enjoying it. But when we got there, I mean, it was 99% humidity. We didn't have any thought of being part of the fastest team in the world. So we just had a good time the night before. We met up with other teams who were in the similar situation from around the world. A great team from South Africa. Still stay connected with them, and we just had a good time with it. We didn't take it seriously. Yeah, but to your point about running and how easy it is, or it's just outdoors. There was this line I came up with. I'm going to forget it, but to me, it's like, what is it when we run? Is it endorphins are released, right?
Hmm.
An enormous amount of endorphins are released when we run and when we're done, and some of the chemicals that are released in our brain are the same ones that are released for people who smoke, do cocaine, do all the drugs. But you know what we get to do? We don't have to pay for it. We can get that same release by putting on some sneakers, going out for 30 minutes, and coming back, and it's like it's a never ending source of endorphins, as long as you can put those sneakers on and get out there.
I love that. I love that. And you're absolutely right. And, it's something that I enjoy doing as far back as high school. So it's a sport that I felt like I could do. I wasn't very coordinated to do some of the other sports like basketball or baseball, but running I really got into. And, I didn't do it for a number of years, like through college and after college, other than maybe just as part as working out. And I got back into it just a few years ago, doing 5Ks back at my old high school, and I started to realize what I had been missing all this time. And then around 2018, I think it was, I started to get into obstacle course racing. And
Mhm.
then for me, that was the challenge. That was a way to really kind of get back into sports and get back into running. And, challenge accepted. I have a whole story of what ensued after that, but definitely missed or realized what I had missed all those years by not, kind of sticking with the running.
And it's hard to put your finger on what that is that you miss, because I look at it two ways. When I got into running and started to do well in these local races, there was certainly the 5K, the 10K race that when you finish it, you just feel so happy. The rest of the day, you're floating. No matter how well you do at the race at all, you got to be with other people, you meet new people, you got that exercise in. So there's that element to it. And then lately, with my two daughters and COVID, I just found that running in and of itself was nearly as good as the race. Not quite as good as the race, but just the process of going out for that daily run is, it's almost like, well, please don't find me on a day that I didn't get to run, because there was something missing. And it's become an easy way to deal with stresses in life and everything that comes at you, as long as you can lace up and get out there, for sure. But yeah, there's those two things. It's either there's both the race side of it, and then there's just the pure joy of having done something. It's kind of like making your bed in the morning, right? It's one, you can't start the day right unless you've made your bed. Everything's a little messy there, but once you've made your bed, you've already accomplished something for the day. But if you can get that run out of the way, you may not have been productive at work or gotten everything done that you wanted, but you can always say, I got that run done. It's nice.
For sure, for sure. Well, I love your story, Simon. I appreciate you sharing that with us. And I know there's a strong connection with running, with the work that you're doing now. But love to hear a little bit about your professional journey and what led you to be a co-founder for Noxgear. So if you could share a little bit about that story.
Sure. Yeah. So when I was my business partner, who became my friend at Moog, him and I actually attended grad school together at Ohio State, but didn't know it. And I was asked to help recruit him up to Moog in Buffalo. And when we were there, we quickly found ourselves doing things that people thought couldn't be done inside of that company for research and development. And that had us rubbing elbows with executives and the C-suite. It's like, hey, these young guys, they're solving these problems that we didn't think we could solve, and that got me interface with the side of business. I'm doing the engineer and the research and development, creating a product that then goes on a helicopter or an aircraft, and then I would start to question, a little bit, what they were, the business decisions they were making, or just want to be around them when they're making the business decisions. So my friend Tom and I said, hey, why don't we take some of this time? The guy who created the research and development lab said, if you have other pet projects, go for it. Just take your spare time and go with it. So why don't we come up with an idea, Tom? He's my business partner. That that we can just create something that will be our own eventually. And we toyed around night after night, portable desktop blender for your smoothie, all these crazy ideas. And then without thinking, one night we realized we really wanted to play ultimate frisbee the next day at night with all of our engineers. We were big on ultimate frisbee, but they wanted to do a night game, and they'd always been using these glow sticks, which just did not work. So we wanted to surprise them the next day and come up with something. So we went to my apartment, got my old fiber optic Christmas tree that my ex girlfriend left me, and cut it up, and spent the whole night and the next day in the lab producing these duct taped on fiber optics that were red and green. And I remember one guy came to the lab. He's like, "Hey, what are you guys doing?" I'm like, "Hey, we're shutting the lab down today. We got this important work we got to do, and it's building these fiber optic vests." The next night rolled around, and yeah, Richard, we put these vests on everybody, duct taped them on, and the sun went down. We went out there, and it was like, I turned to Tom. I'm like, "Dude, there's something special here." It was like Tron in real life, right? And cars were pulling over, watching us play. Kids were coming out just watching us play. I'm like, "There's something here." And Tom's like, "Well, maybe this is it." So fast forward a year, Tom's moved back to Ohio to be with his girlfriend and start the business end of the company. I follow him about 6 months later back to Ohio, and we launch on Kickstarter pretty much 10 years ago. And Kickstarter is where we offered both a version, um, you know, obviously. So as a side story, I saw this and said, "Holy crap, I can use this for running," because at that time, 10 years ago, there was absolutely nothing that would allow me to be seen while I'm running when it's dark out, would allow me to be seen in the most important situations, not when you're right in front of a car. That's usually where they can see you with a little bit of reflectivity. But the points of where cars are turning or where you're not directly in front of the headlight. So I needed something to light me up from every direction. So I said, "Tom, I'm going to take this and adapt it for me as a runner. You do the nighttime ultimate side of things." And we merged those into two products that went on Kickstarter. And that's where Kickstarter spoke. A lot of people gravitated towards the what we call the Tracer 360, the vest for runners, and rightly so, because there was nothing else out there that really solved that problem. Illumination in different directions. We did dig into the science of it all too. There's a lot of visual science that goes behind multicolor illumination, because for the longest time, until we changed it, the trend was red lights. Red lights are actually one of the hardest colors for your eyes to see at night, unless you're looking directly at that light. So again, that's not the best situation for a driver. They're not looking directly at you. You need to catch their attention in your peripheral vision. So depending on what they're looking at inside of their car or their phone and they glance up, their eyes are adapting to different colors. So you really need that multicolor illumination that we brought to the table from every direction. And that was it. People saw this as that solution, I think, because they had been frustrated, just like me, out there running and a car just turned right by you and didn't see you. Well, yeah, maybe you did have a light, but it was only pointing in one direction, or you had reflectivity and you weren't in front of their headlights, which is, it's a bad place to be anyways. So that was it. That was the start of Noxgear. And from there, we formed a community, and we listened to our community, and we've been really creating products around what the community, what we call Knox Gear Nation, has been asking.
I love it. What an incredible story. And I love how you applied the engineering knowledge and skills that you had to solve, a problem kind of in the sports and the athletic world. And you're absolutely right. And this is one of the reasons why I wanted to bring you on the show, is to talk about this important topic of runner safety, because you're not always running on a treadmill or don't have the opportunity to run during the day. If you work full time, you have a family, like sometimes running in the evening or at night is the only time that you can run. And that's the situation that I found myself in, where I was running more outdoors. I was running at night, and so just for our listeners to know, I have a Tracer 360. Absolutely love it. And I remember going out one night. It wasn't quite sunset, but I was about to go out the door for my run, and my wife said to me, "Wait a minute, aren't you going to wear your lights?" So like it's just been an incredible product for me to use and gives me a lot more flexibility in terms of when I could do my runs and being out in the road. I will say that I don't necessarily love running at night, but I don't always have a choice. So this gives me that option to be out there when I have to, especially, in the Northeast where I am in the winter when it gets dark early and you get out of work and hey, that's it. It may not be too late, but it's already dark outside. So wanted to bring you on this podcast to talk number one about runner safety, but also number two about how wonderful your products are. And I just had a great experience with them.
Appreciate that, Richard. Thanks. Yeah, I think that's the common thread that we always see in with our customers and with Noxgear Nation is that there's something about the tracer that they gravitate to. You have that sense of safety that you feel with it, but then it forms a sense of community. It's when the tracer got into a running group, it just kind of proliferates in the running group, and it I get it. Like when I go out with the group, I want to be part of that group. We choose our color for the day. Everyone's maybe a different color depending on how they're feeling. So there's that different, it gives you something else to kind of spice up the run. But I look at running safety, in the totality of it. There's so much involved in runner safety. We put on fresh shoes when they get old so that we don't get injuries. You got to keep an eye on the mileage for your sneakers. So it starts with, good sneakers so you don't get injured. And you don't want to be in physical therapy all the time because you're wearing a bad pair of shoes. So, it starts with good shoes and keeping those up to date, and then it goes all the way to when you head out for a run, you want to make sure you come back without, being injured. And that's our Tracer 360s. There's all kinds of little things that you do, whether you run at night or not. I really tell people daytime. Make sure when you're coming up to an intersection and there's a car turning right, 9 times out of 10, they're not going to look right before they turn. So don't go in front of them. And if you ever have to go in front of a car, whether it's backing out of a driveway or something, you have to make eye contact with that driver. In that situation, you've got to make eye contact with the driver, especially when they're doing the right hand turn. I'm still seeing folks running with traffic. And I really recommend that people on areas that there's no sidewalks run against traffic. That's usually the law in most states, but yeah, I highly recommend that. Um, it's a funny thing. Why do we run? We run to be happy and healthy, and it's a prayer that I say at night for my family. Help us be happy, healthy, and safe. And so then I'm thinking, well, what can I bring to the running community? I hope to bring safety, and in some sense, the tracer is bringing health to the running community. Because it's keeping you healthy. So yeah, I think look at the running as a whole totality. It's not just get out there and brute force get through it. Enjoy it. Make sure you come back safe.
Yeah, that's very, very important. And he brought up a lot of great tips and important tips in terms of, rules for the road. And that's really important. I have a personal story. I'm sure a lot of the runners listening to this podcast have these stories as well. I was running on the road, which, in the past I never really did. I did a lot of my runs on the treadmill unless I was running a race. So, through the course of the pandemic, this is when I really started to run outdoors a lot more than I had done in the past. And I remember I was going to cross a street where a car was coming to a stop sign, and I don't remember if the car just didn't stop or just started to go again when I was
Mm,
crossing the street. Either
yeah.
way, it was not a good situation. So from then on, exactly like you said, I never run in front of a car again. Even if they see me and stop, I still run behind them because I just can't be sure that that's the case. So I appreciate you sharing that tip, and I'm sure a lot of folks listening can relate to that.
Absolutely. Yep.
So I know you have the Tracer 360. Oh, another quick story. Running with the Tracer 360, I can't tell you how many times someone has stopped me either sitting out in their front porch or driving in their car. Oh, nice lights, or what is that? What are you wearing? Or nice jacket. I'm like, no, it's not my jacket. It's the lights. So, I think what you're talking about, like that community, it really draws attention from others, which from a safety perspective is great, but also just from a broader, kind of community perspective and awareness, that's pretty cool too.
I mean, that's there. Okay, so there's all kinds of stories we get. That's definitely one, and to one up that one, because it seems like we hear that all the time. And of course, we always think about the name Noxgear. It's like, wow, we might have come up with a terrible name because someone stops and it's like, wow, what is that? Or they're driving by and they roll down the window and you try to say Noxgear. They don't understand what you're saying half the time. The story behind Noxgear, though, where there were a couple of different names, but Nox is Latin for nocturnal, also the Greek goddess of the night. So that's the nocturnal gear. But yeah, so everyone's like, yes, people stop and ask, what is that? Where can I get that? That's really cool. We've had one person say that they met their wife that way. They said, "Wow, I keep seeing you run by. What is that?" And that was the icebreaker that started that conversation that ended up starting a marriage. So got one for one for a marriage here. But also, what else did we do? We've had stories from cars see me, I feel safe. They see me well in advance too. Um, at least one story, someone slipped on the ice, fell, couldn't get back up, and was on a dark country road. And only because they're wearing the tracer and it was flashing did a car driving by see them and get them to the hospital. So you just never know why you need it.
Yeah, I love you. I love the fact that you're sharing these stories, because it's important, for all of us to be safe, and we don't know what could happen, right? We're thinking, just like you get in the car and you go to work or you do what you're going to do on a daily basis. You're going to go out, put your sneakers on and go out for your run. You assume that you're going to be safe, and hopefully everybody is, right? But you don't know the situations that are going to happen. So being prepared and having those tools with you to help you is certainly going to help, ensure your safety. So those are really cool stories that you shared. And I know you have other products more than the Tracer 360 to help,
Hmm.
with the runs. I know I picked up a couple, over the last year, but tell us a little bit more about kind of what accessories or kind of what goes with the 360.
Yeah, the tracer customers told us you got to make one for the dogs, and they were right. So we Tom and I don't do anything, lightly. So we engineered it for over a year to make sure that it produced actual illumination around the entire dog versus there were some just check the box cheap versions on Amazon that looked okay on Amazon from one image, but you actually look at the solution and you're like, well, I can't see the dog from every angle. That's not going to work. So we spent some time, came up with a Lighthound. That's our dog illuminated vest. Same visual science technology went into that. Um, and then over the past 6 years, I've been working on refining this speaker that we have. It's called the 39G. So the story there is, I do a lot of my long runs, actually daylight, and I'm out there for 2, 3 hours for a long run on a weekend, and I can't stand having anything in my ear for that long. It just gets uncomfortable. They get sweaty. I don't really feel like I'm part of the bike path or the streets, and you lose that situational awareness of the cars when you're really out there. But also, I just can't stand having stuff in my ear, so I'd have my phone on speakerphone. I get really sweaty. I either run with just a tank top or no shirt. So I'm like, I need to be able to listen to my speakerphone, which is too far away. So that gave the genesis to our wearable Bluetooth speaker, which in order to pull that off, we had to make it extremely light. But we were aerospace, in the aerospace world, so we knew how to engineer the crap out of like reducing weight. So that's where we came up with a 39-gram wearable Bluetooth speaker. I wanted to be able to use it, around the house in the shower where I can blast it really loud, or really quiet out on a run where it can last forever because I'm wearing it maybe up by my chest. I wanted to be able to answer a phone call and talk through it, like if my wife called and I was out on a run. So that was, that was just my baby for the longest time. And then we had to come up with a unique way to clip it on, so you could wear it, on a collared shirt or, with what we call magnet mode, so you can wear it through a shirt and zip up a collared shirt so that it can keep your neck warm, but you never want to clip something on and have it like poke into your neck. So we came up with this patented clip, which it's awesome because you can wear it with just about, well, you can wear it with anything, not just about anything. And that for me, it was like, I just want to make this. I really want to make it. And then it took about a year for me to realize, well, this is totally within my Noxgear brand and ethos of safety. because I can hear everything around me. I can hear the birds, I can hear the cars. My music and my podcasts are just like a part of me. They're just part of my run or my daily life. So that product for me is just, it's my go-to product now these days. And as you probably know, with the tracer, we've added on a chest lamp that clips onto the front of the tracer. People are loving that. What we're doing with that is accessorizing the heck out of that lamp. So we've got all kinds of different accessories that can have that lamp clip onto your wrist. So if you're out for a walk, you can become a light that's on your wrist. You don't have to hold a flashlight, and you're out on a nice walk with a dog, and you can hold the leash. We've got a universal clip. You can clip that on to anything, a wall, corner of a desk. Um, we've got one product coming out. I'm not giving away and saying that it's a phone holder, but for me, it seems like the simplest product. But it's my baby. Over the past 6 months, almost maybe a year now, I've been working on it. It's going to come out soon, and that one is just going to be great because I think folks who just need to take their phone with them, they just have to do it for either work, safety reasons. There's not a good way to get your phone in a nice spot that's accessible. Um, it's not, chafing and uncomfortable. So I think we've solved that problem, but that I can share with folks in a few more months when it's out there.
Well, I'm looking forward to that, and I'm in that situation too. I mean, I have non-standard work hours, I would say, and there's a lot of times where I'm taking calls, a lot later in the day or in the evening. So those are the times where I need to do my run, right? I need to get out and do my run. So I carry two phones, which is quite inefficient, but it's just what I
Ooh,
do, my personal and my work phone. So I'll be looking out for that. I'm sure that will solve kind of my two phone problem and help me, have a better way of holding it or carrying it with me.
yeah, I'll let you know when it's coming out. You'll get first access, Richard.
I appreciate that. Oh, I'm loving this conversation. I love that, you sharing your journey and how you founded the company, co-founded the company, as well as, the products that you have offering the running community and sports community in general, the accessories that you're making when you're not necessarily running, but you still get that convenience, as well as safety. So I love the work that you're doing there and all the safety tips that you mentioned above and beyond even the gear, right? So just kind of the situational awareness and the rules of the road, as I would call them. So, really thank you for sharing all that. And I'd love to know, what's next for you as a runner, and what's next for Noxgear.
As a runner, is a good question. I'm currently finally injured after 3 years of healthy running. I finally got a slight labrum tear in the hip, which was not the problem. And the problem was, and this is maybe good advice for folks, was that I started to walk differently because of it to kind of nurse the hip. Walking differently to nurse the hip ultimately flared up the knee in a way that the hip's fine now. The knee needs some care and attention to recover. So, and that goes with a lot of folks who get maybe stress fractures and have to put on the boot. Another bit of advice: my wife, when she had that leading up to Boston, it was not the boot and the stress fracture that got her down. It was the uneven walking. So put on a lifter on the other foot. Big advice, because it seems like someone's going to wear a boot at some point, whether it's plantar fasciitis or what have you. Put a lifter, on the other foot. So as I get healthy, um, my running, I here's a little fact that's coming out of Ohio State research recently is when you get into your 40s, your VO2 max, your ability to really perform well and push your thresholds and get better every year. It keeps going up and up and up, and the research is showing around a little bit in the early 40s, it doesn't roll down slowly; it drops off a cliff. So I'm waiting for my VO2 max to drop off a cliff, in which case I need to set new uh, expectations out of myself, because I'm continually setting, personal records and getting faster. And and this injury has actually helped me to realize that I don't care if I'm not as fast as I used to be. I just want to be able to run. It solves my problems. Something's not right at home or in the office. That run will reset my mindset. So I don't need to be faster. I just want to stay fast running. If you would have asked me maybe a year ago, just as I set my last PR, I'd say I want to be an elite runner, by next year I want to hit that. I need to shave 10 more minutes off. I'm an elite runner. No, no way, man. I just want to be able to run, to be healthy, so that I can continue to serve him all my responsibilities. So that's my running for Knox Gear. Man, that is a great question. I think the products come up naturally. There's problems to solve right now in the running community. One problem that we keep looking at, because I have that artificial intelligence background, um, is how to let folks know when they're out running that they might be close to an injury, but they don't know it. What can you do? So there's a lot of ways to collect data from people while they're running and give them advance warning. Hey, listen, your hip is dropping a lot. You keep this up and you're probably going to get posterior tib syndrome or plantar fasciitis. Having early indication so you don't actually cross into that threshold and get that acute injury flare up and pull it back. That would be one of my next goals, is to so it's a long term goal. There's a lot of data collection there that has to happen. But I think a lot of us can, as long as we listen to it, can really take advantage of technology like that. And in the meantime, there's just going to be a lot of accessories and other products that show up that seem like they're in our wheelhouse, in the safety bracket.
I love it. I love it. You're speaking my language. First on the AI and technology side on one side, but also how are you helping us as runners and the running communities that, not only stay safe, but stay healthy and not get injured. So thank you so much, Simon. I really appreciate you being gracious with your time, coming on the show, sharing all this great information. How can our community find you, find your company, and follow you online?
Yeah, so we're on all those social platforms. And if you send us a message, we'll respond back almost immediately. So look for Noxgear, Noxgear, just about wherever. And I think we've tried to find all the domains that also would be very similar. Like you could do that light up thing I saw.com. We got all those too. So you can find us that way. Send us a message. We're happy to just even chit chat. I say that our fifth product has always been customer service, and that's absolutely true. My best friend runs customer service from elementary school. You call our number, you get a real person on the other end of the phone every single time. So that's us. We're real people making real products. But this is fun. I love talking about things that matter to me, Richard. So thanks for giving me this opportunity, and I love the whole theme behind your podcast. So this has been good. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Simon. So I appreciate you saying that. And I'll also put this information in the show notes to make it easy for our listeners to find you and follow you online. Once again, Simon, thanks for coming on the show. And with that, have a great day.
You too. Cheers, man.